Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Quincy at Quincy University, where they recently celebrated a retirement. After 43 years, soccer coach Jack Mackenzie went to assistant coach status. This, after 516 victories, 10th on the all-time list, 9 national championships, and multiple Coach of the Year awards. Coach Mackenzie said, I retire. Coach Mackenzie, we got to brag on you a little bit first, because people that aren't from Quincy may not know your past. But I mean, over 500 victories at Quincy University, 9 national championships.
Right.
Right? Okay. You were voted Coach of the Year many times, but one time by the entire Association of National Soccer Coaches, the Coach of the Year in '74.
Right.
You're the 10th leading coach on all-time victories of all soccer coaches. So now that you're retiring, I don't think people maybe know what they're losing. How do you feel? I mean, how does it feel to go from all that to sort of like, okay, well, I'm going to let somebody else take over now?
Well, it was time. I mean, I had a wonderful career here. I mean, God blessed me with Quincy University, Quincy College at the time, coaching job. I came into a program that was started by Frank Longo, who coached me in high school, and Roger Francor was with him. And when they were out of it, they brought me in, and they had already won 2 national championships and had a pretty solid program, and all I had to do was keep the ball rolling. And that's what I tried to do, and we were always able to have some good players here. We were quite successful in our recruiting, and you put that together and you get some success.
Yeah, and especially if you work real hard and you're talented like you are. And I know this because you were my high school soccer coach. Right. But I also know that you work your players very hard.
Right.
And I will say this, we may not have been the most talented bunch, but nobody was in better shape and nobody worked harder than we did.
Right.
And that was, sometimes we would curse the coach because of that.
A lot of the guys from Augustinian still remember how hard things were.
Oh my goodness, we worked hard, yeah.
You know,
yeah.
I mean, I was lucky that I had a good background in soccer. I mean, coming from St. Louis, I was coached by about 3 people who were in the St. Louis Soccer Hall of Fame. And so early on, I was touched by people who knew about the game and were passionate about it. And they passed that passion on to me, and I just try to pass it on to my players.
As we talk, let's take a look at some of these boards that they had made up for you during and we'll start with the 1970s. On your retirement last year, they had, after 43 years at Quincy University, they put these boards together for you, and they're terrific because they go through the decades, the 4 decades that you coached here. But the 70s, your first one, well, no, you came in '69. Your first full decade may have been your most successful one.
Right. At that time, Quincy College we were really ahead of the game in soccer. I mean, when the school took the sport on in 1964, they decided to do it in a proper fashion. And so we were probably supported by our institution and the community and the student body, you know, better than big NCAA Division I schools at the time, because, you know, they hadn't really taken to soccer. But Quincy took to soccer early on. They did it right from the beginning, and that just sort of snowballed into a lot of success.
Well, in the 70s, I guess you won 7 national championships. I think it's 7 national championships. Yeah. That's unheard of. Only St. Louis U was able to do that in their heyday.
Right. I mean, St. Louis U was ahead of the curve, you know, when they got into it, and was quite successful. And both St. Louis U and ourselves drew heavily from the St. Louis area as far as our soccer players. And at that particular time was the heyday of soccer, St. Louis soccer in the United States. And so we were just quite fortunate. I mean, there sometimes I would put a team on the field and would have every player on the team would be from either St. Louis or Florissant or South County or something like that. And eventually we got some local Quincy kids to come in, we got a few foreign players to come in, and the program just kind of grew like that.
And you also got some interesting folks to come in. You know, speaking of St. Louis, I want to show this young man here. The newly re-elected mayor of St. Louis, Francis Slay, played for you. And he was an interesting story because he wasn't what you'd call an ultra-talented player to start with, was he?
Well, his talent was good. It's just that he got kind of overlooked in the high school recruiting. And I had actually finished my recruiting, and my former college coach, Joe Carenza, called me up one night and he said, Jack, he said, there's a kid down at St. Mary's High School. He said, he's a good player. If you just take him and give him a chance, I think he'll turn out for you. And so I was out of scholarship, so Fran had to come on his own without benefit of a scholarship and work his way into the team. And it's kind of interesting things about Fran. When he was a freshman and just like a fringe member of the team, we were in a NAIA regional playoff game to get ready to go to the national tournament, and we're not doing so well. The score's tied 0-0, and it was almost like divine inspiration. I swear God said, put Slay in. And I got him off the bench, I put him in the game, and this first touch of the ball, he scored the first goal of the game and broke it open for us. And in 1974, I had a similar situation with him that he was out of the game, and there was a corner kick developing, and I was standing with him at half field, and I pushed him out on the field. I said, get in there and run to the penalty spot. And when the other kid was coming off the field, Fran was running in, the ball was served to the penalty spot, and he headed it in. And we beat Philadelphia Textile. It was a big Division I team at the time. So I have a lot of good memories of Fran. He also had an assist on our national championship winning goal in 1975.
Is that right? Here's your first national championship team, 1971. And that must have been a real thrill.
It was quite a thrill. When I came here in '69, the Father Gabriel had asked me, he said, well, are you going to win a national championship for us? And I said, yeah, sure, I'll get you one. Well, I didn't get it in '69. In 1970, the only game we lost all year was the national championship game, and we came in second. So we come back, and thank God Father Gabriel kept me on, and he hired me to come back again in 1971, and we won the national championship, and that kind of solidified
You
my
were his
space.
Fran Slay.
Yeah, right.
Here's a great picture of you. This is after one of the national championships. You were playing in a snow. If you look at the snowfall in here, you can still see it. And if you look at the uniforms on the player behind you, you can see what a mess you had to deal with.
That was the 1974 national championship. It was played at Coke Park in Florissant, Missouri.
Oh, I know where it is. I know where it is. Hey, let's move over to the 80s here.
Okay.
Now, you are starting to look a little bit different in this decade here. You look like you got a few years on you.
I got some gray hair right there.
Yeah, you got a little gray hair here. Yeah. You finally got it. The 80s were not quite as successful.
It started off with a bang. Yeah. We won the '80 national championship, and we won the '81 national championship. And we strung 5 together, 77, 78, 79, 80, and 81. No other team has ever won, men's team has never won 5 national championships in a row. And we did. And these players here, they played on 4 consecutive national championship teams, okay? And it's Tom Kozlowski from St. Louis, Pat Holly from St. Louis, Gary Hampel from St. Louis, Mike Gallo from St. Louis, Matt Longo from Quincy, Illinois, and Mike Cosman from St. Louis. And they were the first to ever play on 4 consecutive national championship teams.
You've got an unbelievable. You don't
Can't
remember all your
what I had
players.
for breakfast though.
You remember the national champion teams. You don't remember the other teams. But here's in this decade is when you got your 200th win. And when you got your 200th, did you think at that time that you'd be in the game for 500? I mean, do you ever, or do you even think that way?
I actually, when I got my 100th win, I thought, you know, I wonder if I'll get to 200. You know, I wasn't even thinking that far down the line. And, you know, I'm kind of a throwback coach in that I come from the era where you got a job, you had a family to support, you did your job. The new era, people are looking to go here for 2 years, build a resume, go there for 2 years, build a resume and all that. I came to Quincy, committed to Quincy College, as it was called at the time, and committed to teaching here, because I was a teacher at the school also, and to raise my family here. So that's sort of the way things were in the bygone era. I'm a chalkboard guy instead of a whiteboard. I'm a black and white TV guy. You know, I'm a rotary dial telephone guy. So that sort of like puts me in my perspective.
Old-fashioned kind of guy, huh? Yeah. Well, Mike, not everybody gets to follow a legend. It's kind of a mixed blessing, isn't it? I mean, a lot is expected of the program.
Absolutely, yeah. There's a saying that you always want to be the guy to follow the guy that followed the legend. You don't want to be the guy to follow the legend.
Yeah.
So it's a little bit of a different
Yeah, but your situation
challenge.
is you're following the legend, I mean, and people are going to expect those 12 wins every year, boy, and that's going to be tough to do, isn't it?
It is, but, you know, to be fair, that's an objective that, you know, no matter who takes over the program, that's a must. You have to have that, and we want the program to keep moving forward, and we want it to be successful. So, you know, having a lofty expectation, you know, that's only the only way that we're going to get to that point is if we expect to be there, then we can possibly achieve it.
You know, I'm an old soccer player myself, and when I heard that you wanted to be interviewed early because you had to plan a practice,
Correct.
I thought to myself, I never knew coaches planned practices. I thought they just happened.
Yeah, crazy. We actually put a little thought into it. You know, there's certain things, different days that you're trying to accomplish. Sometimes you get it done. Sometimes it doesn't always work out. But absolutely, that's an important key to being successful on the coaching level as the organization.
In these spring practices, what you're trying to do is you're trying to evaluate your talent and also find out what you're going to have in the fall. I guess that's
Correct.
the point, isn't it?
It is, and you know, in the spring we probably focus a little bit more on individual development versus, you know, 11-a-side development. You know, from this point forward, there will be some pieces that will come in, you know, and incoming players that, you know, it's impossible for us to really plan how they're going to fit in because you never know until they get here. So right now we're just trying to create 11 better pieces to be able, come this fall, to assemble them into a
You'll
better
put the
team.
puzzle together in the fall, huh?
In theory.
Yeah.
Hopefully it'll work out that way.
You know, you played for Coach Mackenzie here
Correct,
at
yes.
QU, and you've been an assistant coach for years.
Correct.
What have you learned from him?
Learned a lot. You know, he it's tough to sum it up into a couple sentences or whatever. You know, we had so much day-to-day interaction. You know, and every day you probably picked up on a different lesson here and there. You know, anywhere from like what we were just talking about, trying to pick out particulars that you're trying to accomplish in a particular training session, and then how to progress the session to accomplish that. You know, how to be able to adjust on the fly, you know, because obviously, like I just mentioned, things don't always go as planned, so you have to be able to adapt and realize, okay, this is an adjustment we need to make. You know, and probably more than anything, and most people would probably agree with me, is that just from interacting with him on a daily basis, I learned what it's like to be a very good person, a good friend. You know, he's like family to me, and you know, that kind of stuff you can't recreate.
You know, even Coach Mackenzie said that there's a world of difference between the way you as a young man approach the game and the way he does as an older man. And I'm kind of curious as to how you think the game is changing or has changed over those years, that it would maybe need a younger coach.
Well, you know, the pace is picking up, and that's not just soccer, that's every sport, you know, across the board. Players are bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic, and that's something that you know, it helps to be a little bit younger, maybe to be able to keep up with those guys. You know, and there's so much more science that goes into preparing the athletes nowadays. You know, nutrition, weight training, plyometrics, all those things that maybe weren't used hardly at all, you know, in the earlier days, 60s, 70s. Now, if you're not doing that, you're probably going to be left behind because the other guys are, and they're going to get an edge somewhere that you're not utilizing.
Yeah, back in my day, it was pretty easy for a coach to recruit. If he could go to St. Louis and get the best players, then he could win.
Absolutely.
But that's changed now. Good soccer's played everywhere.
Correct, yes. We still are always going to look to probably have the majority of our players come from St. Louis, but we have to be open to other metro areas, other places. You know, there's good players wherever. obviously the bigger metropolitan areas are a little bit easier. You know, you can go and take a trip down and see 6 games, you know, on a day versus going someplace and driving the same distance and only seeing 1 game. So that's kind of a reason that we will continue to utilize St. Louis, Chicago, those types of bigger areas. You know, but absolutely, there's good players in smaller communities now that 40 years ago the town didn't have a soccer ball, and now the high schools have picked up programs and are producing good players. So we have to be open to that.
You and the rest of the program here are engaged in an improvement project.
We are
trying to raise some money. What's that about?
Well, it's to the point where North Campus Field needs to be updated and renovated. You know, it's one of those things that if we don't change and upgrade our facility, we're going to be at a disadvantage from other schools that we're competing against, both, you know, in actual traditional competitions, and then also recruiting to get the better players. So it's important that we have a facility that matches the you know, the goals of our program. North Campus Field has been a fantastic home to us. It's got some challenges right now, and we're trying to rally the troops, so to speak, try to find some guys that you know, Quincy soccer is very key to them, and asking them if they can help us do some updates and put the field back to the level where it needs to be.
Mike, thank you and good luck.
Appreciate it.
Jim Mentesti, you and Coach have a lot in common. I mean, you came to work at the university the same year, 1969,
right.
And you both retired the same year,
right.
And you were at the university for 15 years at the same time with him. So your careers and lives have dovetailed, and
Very
you know
much.
him probably just about as well as anybody except his family, I guess.
We have a friendship and a relationship that's pretty overwhelming and has a tremendous amount of respect and admiration, and have been through a lot of things together over those years. The wonderful, victorious times, and then the challenging times with a student athlete here, or a difficult loss there, or playing at Clemson University at their place at homecoming and losing by a goal, things like that. So yes.
But you and Jack surely saw more soccer triumphs than you did disappointments. And boy, he was a good hire, wasn't he?
It was, you know, for a Chicago kid to come here and wonder why his alma mater was going to spend time and effort on soccer when you're coming out of Chicago, and unless you came from a ethnic neighborhood, soccer wasn't much. And then you come down here and you get to know all these St. Louis kids, and occasionally several extraordinarily talented young men from foreign countries. It began to fall into place, and it took our little college, and I think helped us dramatically to become a well-respected university.
Yeah, and it took the right coach too.
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah,
without a doubt.
Yeah. What does Jack Mackenzie mean to the school?
He brought a reputation. Well, how many colleges or universities have that many national championships?
Oh, goodness. No.
For number one. And then to play the level of teams that we did play, I've mentioned Clemson, but the St. Louis U's and the SIU's and the Indiana universities, and you name it, the UCLA's, it put us on a, no pun intended, but it put us on a playing field nationwide and internationally to say to the world that this little school of 600 to 800 kids at the time was very extraordinary. The other thing that it has done that I still, after all these years, stress is the fact of the credibility, the integrity of the student athlete. fact that we won on talent, but we won on intelligence too. We won on integrity as well. And then to be fortunate enough to come from a town like Quincy, where you have an NBC and a CBS affiliate, and to be able to tell people that you were part of broadcasts of almost 400 soccer games. We broadcast from the Tangerine Bowl, we broadcast from the Rose Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
We're in the Guinness Book of Records for the longest soccer game in history, which did not go our way necessarily. But when we go to our annual golf outing every year and you sit back in the shade and you see this person who was a star at the time with his classmates, but you know that today he is making a huge impact in his neighborhood. And whether it's as the mayor of St. Louis, whether it's a law specialist, whether it's a medical specialist, those are the kinds of things that you cannot emulate or build into a recruiter's program for admissions. And to see these guys today, and one of the things that still strikes me is I'll bump into one of these guys and it's always, hi, Mr. Mentesti, hi, Mr. Mentesti. You know, they haven't forgotten. And when I retired last year, as Jack did, he was nice enough to send a note out to his kids, and I think I got 70-some notes back. And almost each and every one had a personal note to it of 25 or 30 or 40 years ago, that somehow we as a team impacted. I can remember one from Norm Biederman, and he said, if it wasn't for your role, he said, all I had was a bunch of kids from St. Louis, a star Nigerian from overseas, and I'm trying to play goalkeeper. He said, but you were there to lend the balance to the rest of the program.
That's terrific.
And those were things that they remembered.
Yeah. Well, Coach, you mentioned that you're old-fashioned, you know, and now that you've turned the program over to somebody who's a little more modern, I guess. What will your role be, and what do you see the team? How do you see the team going?
My role is going to be a part-time assistant coach, and last year I had that experience, and basically I go to practices, I watch, I'll make a quiet comment here or there. I don't go to all our games because sometimes I go on the road and scout upcoming opponents and pass that on, but I knew that it was time for me to step aside, and I felt very comfortable that I had the young man in place that could take the program over and lead it on to the future. You know, in his first year as head coach, he was like 12-2-6, and did a tremendous job. And the team, I think, is really solid. We got a great core of returning players for the 2013 season. He had a great recruiting class. I mean, I think that the program is going to move even farther forward. So I'm quite at peace with my role right now as a part-time assistant coach, and I'm one of Mike Carpenter's biggest supporters.
Is it ever difficult to be not the go-to man anymore? Well,
yeah, I mean, it is. There's sometimes I'll say, hey, you know, in my mind, you know, I might have done that differently, but I gave that up. I turned it over, and I'm going to put my confidence in that young man. And you just have to come to grips with that.
Coach, thank you very much. And on behalf of all your players, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Well, after more than 500 victories, Coach Mackenzie steps down. It's unlikely the next coach will reach that milestone, but they sure are hoping for it around here. With another Illinois Story in Quincy, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
Illinois Stories is brought to you by the Corporation for Public Broadcasting and by the support of viewers like you. Thank you. For a DVD copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and when the program aired. You can also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.